Question number 8. We have total equivalent units for conversion under the weighted average method are calculated to be. Okay, so think about conversion for weighted average method. So remember, with weighted average method, we look how many were started and completed. That's 100%. And then we look at ending inventory to see how much was done. Okay, so how many were started and completed? Well, it does say here 960 completed units and transfer them to finished goods. So that's almost enough to say, okay, 960 was done, it was 100%, no problem. Okay, I mean, you could also look at it as how did you get to the 960? 720 new ones were started and completed, and 240 from the beginning inventory were completed. So let's see. Let's see how we solve this one. To me, I look at it as completed and transferred out units 960. That's it. 100%. Now, in ending inventory, I have 360 left. Okay? But remember, weighted average, in ending inventory, we multiply by the percentage that it was already complete. Right? Because that's the whole example of what are 10 sneakers where each one is 10% done. We said is one sneaker. So same idea here. We have 360 of these things. They're all 20% done. Okay, so I have 72 that are completely finished. So I have 1032 equivalent units here. And let's see here. We're going to go down. So 1032 over here is the correct answer. Moving on to question 9. In cost per equivalent unit for materials under the FIFO method is calculated to be. So cost per equivalent unit, now what we have to do is we have the equivalent units from the first question, from question 7. So we have to look at the cost allocated to this FIFO, okay? So the cost that we have here is going to be looking at, and now we're looking at materials, right? We're looking at materials. So materials, you know, FIFO, so we were done with materials to begin with, right? And now we have the idea that it really took 65,000 to complete the materials. That's what we invested into, okay? And now all we're going to do here is look at 65,000 and divide it by the equivalent units. Okay? So we had 65,000. Could do it right here. We had 65,000. That's the cost of the materials, and we divided by the equivalent units, which we got already. And the idea is we get 60.19. So we have the answer here is going to be D, because we're just using them. It's for materials, and the cost per equivalent unit is going to be your total cost materials, which is coming in as really 65, and that cost divided by the units, which we already have, is 1080. Okay, so now moving on to the next one, and the question here is what is the cost per equivalent unit for conversion under the weighted average method? So for conversion, now we have to add up all the costs that we have for overhead, for labor that we added, okay? And the idea here is that we want to add up all these costs and then divide it by the units that we have for conversion for this method, for weighted average, okay? So this one is going to be adding up all the different costs, right? So we have 41,000, 7,000, 38, 22, and then 5, right? So we're starting with all the costs regarding labor, then the 4 pieces of overhead I'm putting in here. The 7, 38, 22, and 5 are all coming in, and then the direct labor. So the weighted average cost here is 113,000. I mean the total cost of this whole thing. the weighted average cost per unit is just that divided by the number of units. So that divided by 1032, which we already had from the prior question. That's the equivalent cost per unit per this method. So the answer for this one is going to be C, 109.49.